Hi, everybody. Welcome back. Hi, Lauren. We have, I guess, a two-part podcast episode mini series that we wanted to wrap up 2024 with around how we do our own wrap up, I guess, of the year, how I look at the end of a year and how Lauren looks at the end of the year and reflects, and how we approach reflection. And that's the step one. So we'll talk about this in this podcast. And then the next podcast, we'll talk about taking that information and the flow from what we learn from that into our intention setting exercises that we do for kicking off a next year. So this is part one of two. I'm excited about it. I definitely am one of those people who on one hand thinks January 1st is just like any other day. You can start something new on July 9th or September 20th or May 9th, just as much as you can start it on January 1st. There's nothing intrinsically different about January 1st. But I also have a little bit of that energy. I always do, as the calendar, whatever fakey calendar we want to say that we live on, as this calendar ends and we flip our year to another year. I do get wrapped up in that energy a little bit of thinking about how I want to maybe approach the next 12 months of my life differently than the last 12 months. And I think it's a part of growth that it can be, January 19th, or it can be January, 1st, or whatever I say, July 19th or January 1st. But a part of growth to step back sometimes and see what's going on and what's going right, and what you might want to adjust the levers on a little bit as we move forward, because as we know, energy is always changing and shifting, and a goal that can be quite important to you at one time shifts and changes, and it turns out to be another goal, and you don't want to miss that, and you're working on some goal that really doesn't matter to you that much anymore because the energy has changed, but you're still just working on it out of, I guess, the obligation that you've given yourself to work on it. Lauren, you want to start with how you like to look at reflection?
Yeah, I first want to talk about what you said about the arbitrariness of this January 1st day. And because I think I just wrote in a newsletter to our community on energymedicineyoga.net. We have a newsletter that comes out every week. And I was writing about the change of the calendar and how there's so many different ways that people around the world call New Year, right? There's different times of New Year all year round. Actually, Chinese New Year happens between the first new moon in the January 21st to February 21st, the first new moon that falls in there. That's the Chinese New Year. And then Jewish New Year is always sometime in the fall, September, October. And the ancient, I don't like the word pagan, but the ancient, what would you say, Blaine, instead of pagan? Or, before there was organized religion, there was still celebrations and all of this. And those people pegged the day of the new year to the winter solstice. But there was also then some that pegged the new year to Halloween, which we talked about earlier as well. So there's all of these different permutations of what actually even constitutes the new year. And I think really that change of time in the solstice it's the light, right? That's how we look at it. Whether that would be a solar change versus in Chinese New Year, right? It's a lunar, they're pegging it to the new moon. So it's the light is changing and whatever hemisphere you're in. But for us in the northern hemisphere, just went past the shortest day of the year and the longest night of the year. And so that change from being light diminishing every day to light returning every day is really the change of the new year. And when organized religion came, and they actually really wrapped up a lot of, I'm going to just use the word again, pagan, for lack of a better word that's coming to mind right now. Sorry. But it took a lot of those practices and kind of wove them into the religions that are the dominant religions of the day. And so then they took that and made it into Christmas and New Year's. And so here we are celebrating what is sort of a random day in the middle of, we're now 10 or so days after the solstice. So I like to take time to reflect, and I feel like you as well, like we're in this, the field energy of the whole entire world, no matter what of those other modalities you might practice or be part of that community. The whole world really does still turn on this January 1 new calendar year. And so it is a time that globally there's a lot of reflection happening and setting the tone for the new year. And so we have an easier time of doing that right now because, like with any field energy, there's a lot of people doing it at the same time. It increases the vibration of us doing that very same thing. So there's a lot of support underneath this idea of reflection. And at least at the start of the new year, there's a lot of support around, transformation or new things or making, a vow or a commitment. And then how much support continues on those is there's actually been quite a lot of studies about people's and their vows and New Year's resolutions and how many of those stick or don't stick. So reflection is really what we're going to talk about today. Taking stock, looking back over the past year, however that year looks for you. And really, for me, I sort of think of it as looking at the harvest that I've reaped. So what have I done all year? And then this is a horrible metaphor, but do you remember when you were a kid trick-or-treating and you'd come home and you'd spread all your candy out and you'd put them into the piles of the favorites, and then these are the ones that get given away because there's no way you're going to eat the junior mints. I hate junior mints. No to those. So you make all your piles, and like these are the super special ones you're going to save, and these are the ones you're going to trade. So I sort of feel a little bit like that, like laying out all the candy, all of the harvest, all of the good things I've gotten. So let's change that metaphor from the sugary things that we're trying to avoid to the sweetness of what we've harvested over the past year. And then look at it in a very similar way. What pieces do I really like that I want to hold on to? What pieces am I like, nope, that's a junior mint lesson that I am giving away. I'm done with that. And what do I want to trade? Like, you and I come on this podcast and we trade wisdom and ideas and we share things. And so, what kind of pieces like that do I want to give away? And what do I just want to keep for myself? And then next time I'll stop here because next time we'll talk about then what we want to do with that moving forward. So I don't know. I feel like I just went off on a bunch of tangents. So I'm going to pass it back to you.
Sure. Do you want to, I might just punt it back to you. Do you want to share how you do that? How do you actually spread the candy each year?
Sure. Okay, I will. So one of the things I love to do, and those of you that have studied with me for a long time know that snow and winter is my favorite season, and snow is my favorite substance on the planet. And so one of the things I really like to do is to go out and spend a lot of time in the snow, not just skiing, cross-country skiing or downhill, but I like to just walk around in the snow, in the woods. What I love about it is you can go anywhere in the snow because there's no paths and you can just kind of, everything is covered in this substance that you can access areas that sometimes you can't, or when there's no snow, you can't. So I like to go out in the snow. I'm all bundled up in my little snowsuit and just kind of flop down somewhere that's really soft. That's one of the things I like about snow is that you can just sort of throw yourself onto the earth and it just woof, just receives you. So I don't even have to go someplace special. It's great if I can get near some water or frozen water, but the snow already is the frozen water. So I just like to go out somewhere and I'll throw myself down into the snow. Sometimes I'll start on my knees, like a little bit of a prayer, which I rarely pray on my knees. That's not a tradition I grew up with. That's not something that I do. Even though I've been to many churches, I don't do that. But there's something about being out in the snow that falling onto my knees feels like a real, it's like a surrender into the earth. So I'll sometimes do that, or I'll just fall back onto my back. And then I'm supported. I'm supported by the crystalline structure of water, which holds memory. So right there, I feel really held in this field of what happened this past year. And I'll just kind of go into not so much a specific kind of meditation technique. I'll do some breathing generally because I'm always breathing. So I might do some specific breathing, deepen my breath, or just, if I'm out of breath because I've hiked a far way to get there, I'll just kind of come back to calmness. And then the way I enter the field is to just place my attention on what it is that I want to think about. And so I'll lie there and I'll just think, okay, let's review the year. And then I'll just go through what are the projects that I've done this year? One of the things that I've been really working on is celebrating completions of things and projects and benchmarks instead of just swiping them off my to-do list. So when I'm reflecting, did I do that? Because that's a habit of mine to not celebrate things. So when I look back through the year, I want to see, did I break that habit? Did I celebrate some of these, these achievements that I've made? What were the achievements? How did I feel about them? What projects didn't I complete? What's still hanging out there? How does that make me feel? So I'll really sit in that field of feeling of, what happened over this past year. And I'll hit it from all levels, like emotionally. What sort of relationships did I have this year? Did I start any new relationships? Did I end any relationships? Did I strengthen any? Did I heal any? Things like that. So I'll look at it from all levels. I'll look physically. Okay, how did I come into this year? What was my physical strength and weaknesses? What was I working on? Did I keep working on it? Was I consistent? Did I reach goals? Did I fall off the horse or the wagon or whatever metaphor you want to use? Did I get back on? So I'll look at it from all of these different levels and just kind of put these ideas, just flow with them in this watery field of memory, just kind of reviewing what's gone on. And, it's hard to sort of split the two up, what's gone on and what's coming next, because they happen a little simultaneously when I'm looking at, for example, like a training event that I've been working towards. Did I meet that? Did I not? And how do I feel about moving forward? Do I want to stay with that goal? Do I want to start a new goal? So I'm being chased around by this sunspot right here. So there's a start of it all. So I'll stop and pass it back to you and see what you do. But I'll say one more thing about that. I'm a water wood in Chinese medicine. And so the way I review the year is very watery. It's very much like I'm floating in the field of what happened and how does it feel and how does it seem and what was going on. And then that'll float by and, oh yeah, I'll be thinking about that. But wait, I forgot that event happened in July. Oh, that was so great. And then we did that thing in August. You know what? I'm not going to do that again. That wasn't as fun as I thought it was going to be. So it's like sort of more like that. It's not structured, but everything is there because I'm in this pool of reflection of the year. So I just kind of float around the pool and let the things wash over me and sit with them and see how they feel.
It's such a great study of the five elements. I think that if we had a water, a wood, a fire, an earth, and a metal here, you would probably, you ask them if they were each someone who has a, formalish reflection process at the end of the year, I bet they would all be different. As a primary metal, mine is structured. It is. It is different and than the way you do it. And I've done it this way Probably 6 or 7 years. Really, when I started studying energy is when I kind of added the energy layer to what I did, and then it's morphed a little bit. But I look at it from a energy perspective, and I get out my journal and I get out my pen, and I do some listing. But I will say before I get out my journal and out my pen, I meditate, and I'm seeking to come to a place of balance. And so I don't want to come at my reflection activity from a place of not balanced or not not being able to think. There's this word equanimity, and it's kind of this equal mind, this equanimity where you're looking at things from a very balanced point of view and not an emotional point of view. And so I seek equanimity before I do this, and the way I try to get there is through meditating and then doing an energy balancing practice on myself. Nothing more fancy than an energy medicine yoga wake up Donna Eden DER daily energy routine kind of combo to just get my energy moving forward and crossing over, and the basics of energy. And then I make a list of basically everything that I routinely did throughout the year. So I kind of think about January, think about February. I get out my calendar because I'm not going to remember everything that I did, and I write down everything that, is not required, right? I mean, there are things that I do that I can't get out of. They're commitments, they're, even as simple, I wash the dishes all the time. Like, I'm not getting out of washing the dishes. So I'm not going to evaluate if I want to keep washing the dishes or not, So the things that, but in relationships too, I am a mentor of women. I am a mentee of other women. I have, I guess, peers who we talk sometimes once a week or, every other week. We have scheduled times that we talk. And so I'll put those on the list. And what I'm doing is I have 3 measures. Do they give me energy? Are they energy neutral? Or do they deplete my energy? And so for each of these, they get a plus or an equal or a minus, every single one of them. And it makes me think about it because I think that at least, I can just get in this is just what I do. This is just what I do. This is just what I do. And it can maybe all feel neutral. Sometimes you really dread something. That's a sign that it should maybe be a negative, but sometimes you can dread something and then you're like, I'm so glad I did that. And so I think that it's, instead of just doing it again and again and again and again, it can be January 1st or September 19th, whatever. Just at some point, like, sit down and take stock of all those things. And then we'll talk in the next episode about intentions with what I do with all of that. And so, it's not an energy test so much as like I'm standing up and doing a pendulum test or something like that on all of these, but it's like an internal barometer of it. So that is how I look backwards at my year. And then I do a little bit of that higher level, what were some goals that I had for the year and did I achieve them? And then before I just kick them into the next year, like we'll get into that, it's just a nice time to reflect on how those went. And so back to 5 elements, that's probably, would probably be called metal by other people, making the list and having your little plus signs and minus signs and your calendar and a much more formal reflection process than lying on my back in the snow and letting my mind float around.
Doesn't sound very good when you say it that way. I mean, I'll say this. I'll say this though. This is why I love doing this. I love your idea, and I think I might try it. I really like that idea. I've never done a formal thing like that, which is so interesting because I'm such a journaler and a list maker. And one of the things we'll talk about when we get onto the manifestation, or not the manifestation, that's a whole other topic, but onto, looking towards the future, is I still, just the other day I have the huge sticky notepad, the one that's like the really big size, right? And I've got it stuck on the wall with all of the projects. I think that one is 2 years old, and I just swiped off one of the projects that I still hadn't done. And I think there's 2 more on there. So like I'll have that big picture of like, what are the big things that I'm working on that I want to do? And it's not all work things. It's like life things too, right? Like work's only one piece of it. So I do that part of it, but I've never done the reflection part the way you just described. And I love it. I think it's really, it sounds really powerful. And I'm going to try it. That's all I have to say about it. I'm going to try it.
To be honest, Lauren, the lying in the snow, well, pretend it's not snow.
Okay.
I mean, the lying in the snow is not my jam, but lying down, we'll just say in a Shavasana pose, or maybe on a raft in a swimming pool.
Or what about on the
a
beach
warm,
in
an
the
87
sand?
degree heat.
In the sand on the beach?
Or sand,
Okay,
yes.
okay, you could do that.
With the sound.
Yeah.
But so it does sound good to me too. I mean, it truly, like, it sounds very appealing to not be in list mode and just let my mind wander, because I'm sure I would access parts of my, I guess, psyche, for lack of a better word, if I tried that. So I think I will also try it your way, minus cold.
Mine is cold. Right. You just need you don't even need to be near water. It's helpful, I think, to be near water because I like the floating in a pool idea on a floaty, because then you're literally in a field, right? You're in a moving field of water. What I do love about it is there is a power in the randomness of what comes up into your intuitive mind. Right? Like if you just say, okay, I'm going to reflect on the past year, and then something will come up that you might not even thought about that or remembered that it happened, because so many things happen every year, right? But when you lie there and you're like, okay, let's see what happened physically this year, what happened mentally this year, what happened in my relationships. And, you put that little piece out there, but then things float up that you wouldn't have even thought of. And I really like that, because there's some real gems that can float to you that you might not have thought about. But what I really like, and maybe we kind of hybridize these together, because what I think is so valuable about what you're doing there, we're going to do several podcasts on this, so I won't go too much into it, but you talked about if something, you say it, if it's equal, plus or minus, what do those 3 things mean for you? What's your metric there?
Yeah, so gives me energy is neutral, so neither gives or take away, or minus is takes away my energy.
I mean, that is so brilliant. That's such a brilliant way of observing your life, really. I mean, because that's what we're doing, right? We're just doing it at this point in time reflectively, but we could start to do it day to day, moment to moment. Does this give me energy? Does it take energy away from me? Or is it neutral? I feel like that is the takeaway, and that is so powerful to put that on pretty much every experience that you do. And even the ones, like you said, that like you're going to do the dishes, right? Those aren't going to not happen. But if you put one of those on there and say it's negative, okay, but you have to keep doing it. So is there a way for you to make something that is taking energy away from you, that you are required to do? What can you do then to make that be something that gives you energy? I remember from back in high school, I had a friend who wrote her college application essay about doing the dishes and how nurturing it was, and how, warming her hands under the water, and just the being with the water, and it was her time alone in the kitchen after all the crazy. So there's a way, right, for us to kind of do that. Anyway, I just think that's really powerful. I love that you do that, and I'm gonna take that from you.
Well, back at you. I'm gonna take yours from you. And do you want to wrap it here, and then we can allow everyone to maybe do their own reflection exercise, even if you're, maybe not listening to this or watching this the day that it releases, just before you watch or listen to the next episode, either the way I do it or the way Lauren does it or the way you could be a completely different element and you may have your own way. So whatever way just resonates with you to accomplish the same goal of the looking backward. And then when we chat with you next, we will start talking about the way we like to look forward.
I love that. And I would love for you to drop in the comment on wherever you're listening and let us know if you tried one of these techniques, if you tried a hybrid of these, or if you have your own technique. I'd love to know what that is. And if you know what your element is, and you do a different technique, I'd love to know what that is so that we can find out some wood, fire, and earth techniques for reviewing the year. So that's just a little, Easter egg to those of you that already study with us and know what we're talking about when we say that. And if you don't, you still probably likely do a reflection. So drop in the comments what you do. We'd love to hear from you. And one of the things that we just shared this week is we just learned so much from each other, and that is really the beauty of this podcast and energy and how energy works. Is we get to share our junior mints with each other. So thanks for tuning in, and go ahead and do your reflection, and then jump back in with us next time, and we'll see where we go from here.
Bye.